Namaste. Today we're going to be practicing Virasana and Vajrasana. Lately I have been doing a lot of sitting and my body's been asking for certain poses. And one of the poses that it's been asking a lot for is Virasana. And more importantly, with more demand, it's been asking for Supta Virasana. So I'll be going over the steps for Virasana and I'll also introduce you to Vajrasana, which is kind of like a progression from Virasana. Virasana means hero, or Vira means hero. It's hero pose or the warrior's pose. And I think about it as like if I've ever seen any kind of war or hero movies, there's always a certain point in the movie where the hero of the movie kneels down and is just like, at the mercy of the universe. And I see this pose as that kind of pose. And also I feel like my body also, whenever my body asks for Virasana, I feel like it's asking to open to something greater, to open to the bigger picture of life. And usually my body cries for Virasana when I've been sitting at the computer for many, many hours, or sitting at my desk for many, many hours working. And it's like I get into this little bubble and I just want to like break out and open up and open the front of the body. So this practice will be that kind of practice where we'll get to open up, and you'll also learn the steps of how to prepare for and get into Virasana, and then its progression, its later kind of older brother, Vajrasana. So come to all fours. Come to all fours. And take your knees wide, bring your big toes to touch, and press your hips back into child's pose. Reach your arms out in front, lengthen the sides of your body, and take 3 deep breaths here. And maybe there's a reason why you're practicing Virasana today. So connect with your intention as you breathe and allow the pose to do the work of opening your body and letting your intention radiate from the heart out. And then come up onto all fours and circle your hips. And think of going all the way towards your hands. So you bring your hips all the way towards your hands and back. So this starts to open the front of the hips. And circle the other direction. And you might have seen in child's pose how far your buttocks reached to your heels. So if your buttocks reached all the way to the heels, then that's a good sign that your legs are probably in the right or optimal position or timing for Virasana and Vajrasana. If your bum was not, come back to center, if your bum was not touching the heels, and we can test it out here, curl your toes under, press your hips back, straight back towards your heels. And just notice, can you bring your sitting bones to your heels or to your legs? And how close are they, or are you more up here? Okay, and if, again, you don't want to force it, so if you're forcing, then don't. and just notice, wherever you are, notice what's happening in your knees. While we're doing this, we're stretching the sides of the body long, reach through your fingertips, and keep your toes curled under so that you get a bit of a backline stretch in the feet, so the soles of your feet are stretching. And then bring your right foot forward between your hands. Okay, so these poses, Virasana, Vajrasana, they're not for everybody. And again, as I said at the beginning, they usually take a long time to train the body to get into. They're not natural poses for the body to get into. Lift your back knee up, lengthen your spine, and sit deeper in your front hip. Take a twist, lift your right arm and stretch the side of your body long. So we really want to stretch the sides of the body, especially since we're going towards Supta Virasana. Supta Virasana is the one where we're lying down. And then come back to center. And from here, straighten your front leg. Exhale your breath all the way out. Inhale, bend your knees. Touch the knee down in the back. Lift your chest. Exhale, straighten your legs. Stretch the back of the body. Inhale, look up. Exhale, straighten the legs, fold forward. And keep going 2 more times. So I like to do this to release the back of the body. 1 more time. The back of the legs. And bend. Good. Inhale, step forward and change sides. Lift your back leg, lengthen your spine, and take a twist to the left. Reach the left arm alongside your ear and stretch the sides of your body, especially the left side. And keeping the left side of your body long, roll your left buttock away from your waist and underneath you. Sit deeper. Inhale back to center and exhale, straighten your legs. So we release the back of the thighs when I'm doing a lot of sitting. Inhale, bend your knees, bring your knee down. Keep moving with your breath. Exhale, straighten your legs. And keep going 4 more times. When I do a lot of sitting, not only does the front of my body and the front of my hips get tight, which is why my body asks for Virasana, but the back of my legs get tight. Inhale to look up, exhale down, and then I think we have 1 more. And exhale. Good. Inhale, step forward, Uttanasana. Take your feet hip distance apart. Lengthen your spine forward, maybe bringing your hands to your shins to make sure your lower back stays more neutral, and then exhale to fold. Interlace your fingers behind your back, roll your shoulders back, opening the chest, and stretch your arms away from your back. Deepen your breath, bring the breath all the way into the belly and into the chest. And as you exhale, bring the forehead closer to the floor. Reach your arms. And then release your hands, take downward facing dog. Inhale, plank. Exhale, down to the belly. Inhale, cobra. The thighs stay on the floor. Open the chest. Think of lifting your belly up towards your chest. So like the skin of the belly. So as you lift your belly up, you don't want your legs to lift up. And then exhale, downward facing dog. Do that again. Inhale, plank. Exhale, down through chaturanga or to the belly. Inhale, lift up, cobra, bhujangasana. Lengthen the spine. If you feel any tightness in your lower back, then lower down. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale, plank, 1 more time. Exhale, through chaturanga. Inhale, bhujangasana. Reach your toenails. Exhale, downward facing dog. Take a few breaths. And then inhale, lift your right leg up and step your right foot forward between your hands. Lower your back knee and bring your hands up to your front leg. Bend your front knee, shift your hips forward, and lift up through your lower belly. Reach your arms up, interlace your fingers, index fingers pointing to the sky, and turn the inner arms back, inner armpits back. So the bicep side of your arm, turn that back. Keep the tone of the legs and lift your lower belly. Move your tailbone down. As you're doing this, we want to open up the front of the left thigh. Don't go so deep in the hip crease. Actually draw your left hip crease in so that you can move your tailbone down. Draw the left hip crease in so that you can move the tailbone down. And then exhale, release, downward facing dog. Inhale, left leg up. Exhale, step forward. Bend knee lunge, knee to the floor, Anjaneyasana. Lift your arms up, interlace your fingers, reach up, biceps back. Take a deep breath in. And then moving your inner thighs back, lower your tailbone and bring your hips forward. Again, I feel the stretch in the front of the right thigh. Try not to get the stretch right in the hip crease, but more in the belly of the thigh, right in the middle of the thigh. Take a few breaths. Keep lifting your lower belly like you did in Bhujangasana. Open the chest. Keep the back of the body long, tailbone long. Bring your hands down, downward facing dog. Inhale, plank. Exhale through chaturanga. Inhale, up dog. Up dog, we go from cobra with the thighs down and pull the hands back, hips forward, lift onto the top of the feet. Press the toenails down. Move your tailbone away from you. Open your chest. Make sure that your shoulders are not forward, but draw them back. Heart open. Breathe, breathe, breathe. And then press your hands down to lift into downward dog. Good. And then come down to your knees. So if you're sitting on your knees right now, you're sitting in Vajrasana. So maybe you easily go into Vajrasana. That's great. We're going to learn more of the technique about it. If you have a ball, if you have a tennis ball, put this video on hold and go grab your tennis ball. Or a lacrosse ball. If you don't have, then don't worry about it. You can use your hands. So what I like to do is, what I noticed in Virasana and Vajrasana are three different things, or two different things. One is tightness in the ankles, where the ankle doesn't seem to flex as much. It doesn't stretch here. And the other thing is the knees, that the knees, when we try to sit, it's like something blocks. We might not feel it in the knees, we might feel it somewhere else, but it's like the buttocks don't sit on the heels. Okay, so those are two things. So one is the ankles that don't go flat on the floor, and the other thing is that the buttocks can't sit on the heels. They kind of stay in the air here, which isn't good for the knees, because then your knees become kind of like the point of what's it called? Like a lever, like they're like holding you up. So we don't want that. So one of the ways to release the front of the leg and get the ankles open, and also start to stretch the front of the legs so that the knees have more space to bend, is by using the ball. If you don't have a ball, you can use your hands, you use your thumbs, and just massage the top of your foot. If you have a ball, you can roll the ball over the top of the foot, and you'll notice it's quite bony. There's not much flesh there, there's not much fat there, or tissue, but still there's fascia, there's connective tissue. And you can go even all the way up the leg towards the knee. So don't roll on the knee, but just roll on the flesh around your shin bone. Do that a little bit. Go all the way to the toes. And it might not seem like much, but we're kind of untangling some of the tissues in the foot, which have an effect on the whole line of the front of the leg and the front of the body. Good. And then just, you can pause there and just kind of move your toes, and you can probably feel the difference between both sides. And then go do the other side. So again, you can massage with your hands in no particular way. And even as you're rolling the ball, you don't have to push into the foot. This is not like a deep tissue massage. You could, but it's not necessary. And actually, we want the tissues to release. So if we go too deep too fast, they might contract. And go all the way up the front of your leg to the knee. Again, I'm just rolling the ball around, and if you're using your hands, you just massage, like move the skin around. And do that. And actually, you can do this action all over the body, and it will have the same effect as what you're feeling in the foot, where there's like a loosening, kind of like a more airy feeling, where there's a feeling of more spaciousness. and then release. Again, just observe. Okay. So now we're going to take the blanket. Take the blanket and a block, or 2 blocks. Just have your blocks close by. If you don't have blocks, grab some cushions like pillows. And I'm going to come to the edge of the blanket. So fold your blanket so that there's a clean edge on where you're close to your feet. And you're going to bring the front of your ankles. So often the ankles are tight, and one remedy to support the ankles and to work towards Virasana and Vajrasana is by having by kneeling on a blanket. And that way you give a little bit of height, so the ankle is actually pushing into the blanket, which is elevated away from the floor. And from here, take the block and you'll sit, or your cushion. So if you have cushions, you're going to put the cushions just over your legs, but make sure there's a space between your ankles. So my ankles are separated, and I'll turn to face you guys here. So I'm on the edge of the blanket. My knees are hip distance apart. So knees are closer together, and the feet are apart. And then I place the block or my cushion between the ankles. And for some people, you might need 2 blocks, or you might need a block and a few cushions. And this way, the blanket supports the ankles. So if the ankles are not feeling flexible yet, this will help. Gravity will slowly start to pull your ankles down, and as the tissues in your feet become more open, that's going to be, you'll be able to take the blanket away. The blocks are supporting the knees. So the blocks are helping by taking some of the weight off of the knees. And you'll notice that the angle of the knee is a little wider than if you were sitting on the floor. As you progress through this pose, you would eventually remove 1 block, and then eventually you take off. Actually, here I would go first with the blanket. I would take the blanket off and then go all the way down. Okay? Now, when you're doing this pose, one thing that kind of gets in the way are the calf muscles. So what is often done is we just lift up, place the fingers behind the knees, and you grab your calf, and your calf actually has, each calf muscle has like 2 muscles. It's like the thicker one underneath your skin, that what you're feeling underneath your hand, it's like 2 long muscles, and we just separate them. So we kind of split them in 2, and we slide. I'll slide my hands down towards my heels, and that should create a bit more space in the knees. Then you can just lift the skin on the front of your knees out from underneath the knees, and this would be the result of the pose. You can also do those adjustments while you're on the blocks and while you're on the blanket. Notice here the deep bend in the knee and the angle of the ankles. So the ankles, it's like one straight line from the knee to the second toe. And that's another thing about the alignment of the feet. There's different options for the alignment of the feet. The classical Virasana is with the feet kind of in a vector, so going out. So if you look at the knees to the toes, or to the second toe, it's kind of creating like a V. What we don't want is we don't want to turn the toes completely out so the ankle is at an angle. The ankle stays straight, right? So it's not the W sitting. You know, when people put their feet like this, oh my goodness, don't do that. That's horrible for the knees. Don't do it. Horrible for the knees, and even worse for the hips, for children who are developing. You know, if you see your children doing that, then slowly and kindly, compassionately readjust them. So Virasana. So we sit here, interlace your fingers and reach your arms up. So wherever you are, maybe you're sitting on the floor, maybe you're sitting on the blanket, just feel supported. We don't want any pain in the knees and no pain in the ankles. So if you feel pain in the joints, that's a sign that you're going too deep and that you probably have to readjust your posture, or don't do it at all. Good, bring your right hand down and stretch the left side of your body. Lift your chest from deep inside. As you sit here with the toes flaring, spread them out. Even reach the little toe out to the side and press your toenails down. What I notice with my clients and my students are cramping in the feet. So these poses are really good if you're wearing, if you're wearing high heels or if you're wearing shoes all day long, which the majority of us are. Inhale, lift up. Exhale, other side. You'll notice that there's a lot of benefit in these poses. Your feet might cramp in the beginning, but as the tissues of the feet loosen up, you'll get a lot of relief, and it will help counter the fact that our feet are in boots or in shoes or even in high heels all day long. Inhale and come up and release. Now slowly come off of your knees, and to counter this pose, we need to straighten the legs. So we're going to stretch the legs back very, very slowly. And then go into a bit of a downward facing dog. But keep the legs straight. So if you have a habit of bending the knees in downward facing dog, that's fine. But for now, because we're trying to straighten the legs and just counter the deep knee bend, straighten your knees and squeeze the muscles around the knees. Don't lock the knees, just squeeze as if you're hugging the knees on all sides. From the front, the back, and left and right. Inner and outer edges of the knees hugging in. Put more weight on your big toes. And lift all the way from the inner arches of your feet into the inner groins, up towards the sitting bones. And then come back down. So I talked about different variations of the feet. So the classical way is to have the feet straight out, like in a vector. So in the same line as the shin bone. Another way that is sometimes taught is with the feet turned in. And for that, we would do the same setup, either with the blankets or the block, or sitting on the floor. But instead of having the feet kind of reaching straight back, we'd have the feet turning. We'd sit on the floor or on your blocks, but the toes turn in. Now this variation can be a little bit better for the knees. However, it puts a bit more stretch on the outer ankle. So if you have tight ankles, then you might feel it a bit more there. And if you have any, if when you're standing up, if your inner arches kind of turn up, if you notice like the inside of your feet turn up, then maybe that part of your leg, the outer ankles, is already stretched out enough and you don't need to do that. So what I would recommend is to do the one with the feet straight back. Now, let's go to Virasana. Virasana is with the knees together and the feet together. So we're no longer sitting on the floor, we're sitting on the heels. So this is like our typical, when we're kneeling down, we're here, right? It's a little bit more, it creates a bit more tightness in the knees, I find. But I've had this discussion with a couple of other teachers, and the consensus that came up was that it really depends on your body and the shape of your knees. So if you have any knee problems, then these poses are probably not the best poses to do for you. However, if you do have kind of like, like arthritis, things like that, then sometimes it might be good to just move the knees in different ways, right? And this might be a pose that you choose to do that, but you don't want any pain in the knees. So now we're just sitting on the heels. Notice what's happening to your heels. Are your heels falling out to the side? Are they drawing in? Are they really hugging in? Those are different options. So for me, because I've had issues with my knees in the past, the most comfortable position for me is with the heels slightly out. When I have the heels slightly out, what that does is it kind of rotates the shin bone inwards. The tibia turns inwards. And when the tibia turns inwards, if we look at the shape of the knee, then that internal rotation of the shin bone is actually somewhat optimal. So again, we don't want too much rotation, but because of the angle of the knee, the shin bone can internally rotate slightly, especially when the knee is in deep flexion. So when we have the knees together, then we can allow the heels to kind of move out. What I would suggest is that you press your toes down to create a little bit of a boundary on the outer ankles so that you're not just passively releasing your heels out to the sides. So if you look from behind, I'm sitting on I'm kind of sitting on my inner heels, okay? And if I push my feet down and my toes down, that's gonna create a bit of tone in the outer ankles. Try it at home, try that for yourself. Another variation for the feet is to have, what I've noticed to create a little bit more engagement in the ankles is to have the heels together. So what we can do is we can come up, and instead of having your heels kind of apart, falling out to the side with that internal rotation, you bring your heels closer together. You engage the outer shin bones and you hug in. And think of like holding a walnut between your heels. And then you widen your sitting bones and you sit on the heels. Now for the knees, I personally don't like this so much for my knees because I don't have that natural rotation of the shin bone. It's a little bit too extreme for my knees. Like I feel that my knees are twisting. So I don't usually do that. And however, it's a nice way to tone the outer legs and to create some of that strength in the lower legs and the ankles. So if you're okay with that, then you can do that. And the last way is with the feet. It's kind of like a hybrid between Virasana and Vajrasana. And this is where the feet are stacked, okay? So the knees, I like to have my knees a little bit wider than just like inside the level of the hips, inside the line of the hips. And then I sit on my feet, so I'm not sitting on the floor, I'm sitting on my feet. And my feet are turned where the big toe is touching the inner heel of the other foot. So the top foot, the foot that's on top, the toes are touching the heel, and the bottom foot, the toes are touching my ankle. And you can kind of find that sweet spot. And then you would want to do it the other side. And this is kind of nice. Again, we have that slight internal rotation of the shin bones, which makes it a bit more pleasant for the knees. Again, it depends. And for the feet, it kind of gives a little bit of a different challenge for the feet, because it's like I'm always trying to find, okay, how do my feet kind of fit together? And eventually I'll find that sweet spot. It gives a little bit extra stretch to the top of the feet. So that place that we were massaging, right, with the ball or with your hands, it's stretching that area. But again, because we don't want to do too much stretch, you want to engage the outer shins in slightly. So we're not completely collapsing, we're not passive, the legs are not completely passive. There's a bit of engagement as you click the toenails down. And then come back out. And once again, take downward facing dog and straighten your legs. Squeeze all around the knees, so hugging the knees on all four sides. And in the upper body, you can press from your heart, press into your hands and reach all the way to your sitting bones. Good. Walk your feet forward and come down to sitting. So you can move your props to the side. Now we're gonna move into Supta Virasana, and we'll start with one leg. So what you can do is, so for this, if you're not doing Virasana, or if this becomes very challenging for you, because it's a little bit more challenging, you can just keep your legs straight and do everything that we're doing with the top leg. You can do it, but with the bottom leg straight. So if you're going into Ekapada Virasana, you're gonna bend your knee, and you can keep the leg pretty passive. And then with your thumbs, you're gonna split the calf muscle behind your knee and separate the whole calf muscle as you bend your knee even more. From here, I like to turn to the side, heel to the outside of your sitting bone, and you come into that Virasana leg. Press your toes down in the back, tuck your tailbone under, even the flesh of your buttocks underneath, and bending your top leg, lie down on your back. This might be too intense, so you might move down to your elbows, and you might work here. If you can lie down, or even place a blanket underneath you, underneath your upper back, just so that you don't have to be propped up on your elbows. Press the toenails down and make sure in this position that the toes are not turning in. One of the dangers about having the toes turn in is we tend to lose a bit of control over the shin bone. So by pressing the toenails down, especially the little toes, then we're gonna have a little bit more control in the ankle and the knee. Bring your right knee to your chest. And then hold the big toe, or you can use a strap and or towel and place it around the foot. Bend your knee and bring the leg out to the side, but keep the knee bent. Take a deep breath into the center of the body. My left arm is reaching out. And as you exhale, extend from the center of your pelvis out through your left thigh into your left toes. So the bottom leg toes, and then stretch out through your right thigh, keeping the knee bent, or if you want, you can straighten the leg. Keep breathing, keep hugging the midline. So important here, click your baby toe down to the floor on the bent knee, and then come back to center. Rechamber the right leg, bring your foot down, and to come out, I like to lift the hips and then slowly unfold the knee in its natural movement. Straighten the leg, squeeze around the leg, and then roll to your side to start the other side. Relax your right leg, bend your knee, separate the calf muscle with your thumbs, and then bend the knee all the way. So as I'm bending the knee, I keep the leg pretty passive, like it's like dead weight. And that way that will relax the knee muscles so that we can get a nice secure bent knee. Bring your heel just to the outside of your sitting bone and chamber the leg. Bending your other leg, tuck your tailbone, lift to scoop your buttocks under so you can lie back on your elbows, breathe. Maybe there's a blanket underneath you to support you, or you lie down all the way to the floor. Try to level the pelvis. One side will be higher than the other. Reach your tailbone long so that you're not overarching in the back, and then hold the big toe with your first 3 fingers. Open into half happy baby pose, right arm up. Now notice that my right hip crease, right, my right hip flexors are tight, right? You can see on this side, my right leg is lifting a little bit higher. So I want to make sure I ground my toenails. So I press my toenails down. That's going to create a bit more engagement to support the leg. And then take a deep breath in. And then from my pelvis, I extend out through my right leg. And I'm not forcing it down, but I'm inviting it down towards the floor. I try to keep the length of my lower back. And in my left leg, I extend the left leg away from the right leg with the leg straight or bent. Now I'm cheating a little bit. I'm using the wall. And if you're at home, now that I'm using the wall, I'm feeling like, wow, okay, it feels a lot more supported. So you can try it with the wall. It kind of gives a sense of security. Reach your tailbone. And then inhale to come back up, knee bend. Place your left foot on the floor. Press your toenails down on the floor. And like bridge pose, scoop the buttocks up. Inhale. And then lift your right leg up towards the sky and straighten it all the way out. Good. Bend both knees. Roll to your right side. Come up. And then finally, we finish with Supta Virasana. And this is where both knees are bent. So I'm going to do the option with the blanket. But of course, if you're feeling very open in the front of your body, you don't need to do that. And as you can see from my body that, each side has its own personality. So we really have to respond to the needs of both sides. And we just treat them independently, while at the same time keeping in mind that we're trying to create balance. Oops. So, for Supta Virasana, the knees are hip distance apart, feet a little wider than the knees. So if you look at your shin bones won't be parallel. The feet will be a little bit wider. And I clear the back of my knees, the calf muscles, I separate them in two, and then I sit on the floor. And maybe you're going to be sitting on a block. Maybe you're going to have the blanket underneath your thigh, underneath your shin bones to support your ankles. Another way to support the ankles is just by rolling up some socks and you place them underneath the ankles. But again, the idea is that you're giving your ankles a chance to slowly ease open. Eventually you take the socks off or you lower. You want to put less and less and less support underneath as your body becomes more open. Lift and scoop the buttocks and come back down. And then I lie down on the blanket. You can always have more support, a bolster. I know in yoga studios we'll use a bolster. Hold the elbows. Let the energy of your body settle. Press your toenails down to support the ankles and reach your arms overhead. You can even do this pose not lying down but supported on the wall, so you can have your back leaning against the wall. Or maybe a few cushions. Take some of your bed pillows, put them behind you between your back and the wall. Virasana is very good. You can practice this pose even after meals. So often we don't practice yoga after we eat. We usually wait a couple of hours. But this pose is really good for digestion, circulation. It's a power pose in many ways. If you have any tenderness in your lower back, then you can try just lifting and moving with your hands, move the flesh of your buttocks down, so away from your lower back. And if that doesn't help, then come slightly out of the pose. Give yourself more support under your back. Breathe and give your body space and time to open, to release. And then bring your arms down to your sides. So this is a pose you can do for like 5 minutes. Or gradually work towards 5 minutes. Bring your elbows to your close to your sides, your hands either on your feet or on the floor. I like putting my hands on the feet so I can push my heels into my hands and my hands into my heels. And from the heart, I lift up, chin to chest, and then I bring my hands to the floor. And again, with my heart, press your toes down, lift up through the heart, and come all the way up to sitting. lift slowly off of the floor, and I'll bring my legs in front. Instead of downward facing dog, I'll do Dandasana. Legs are straight, spine is long, squeeze around the legs, but keep the heels touching the floor. So you can see if you spend a lot of hours sitting down, the front of the hips, the front of the body gets tight. Like even in this position, it's kind of like a sitting position, right? Where the hips are hinged. And when we go into Virasana or Supta Virasana, how that reverses a little bit the flow of energy, reverses the position of the body, and reestablishes a bit more balance. So very good poses to do if you're sitting long hours at a desk. Good. And then you can lie back for Shavasana. And again, just scoop the buttock flesh underneath. Relax your legs. Relax the belly and rest your arms by your side with the palms of your hands turned upwards. Notice any new sensations that may arise or may have arisen as a result of your practice. And allow your heart to remain open to that observation. You can stay longer in Shavasana. If you're done, you can bend your knees and roll to your right side. Take your time to transition with ease and with deep breaths back to sitting. And then we'll close with one sound of Om. Bring your hands together in front of your heart, your hero's heart. And remembering that the practice of yoga is not just a practice, but it's a journey. May we meet our bodies where our body is at. And in doing so, may our body continue to expand. May our minds expand and may our hearts expand. Take a deep breath in. Thanks for joining me today. If you like this video and want to see more poses instructed, just please leave a comment below. Indicate which poses you'd like me to teach more of. And until then, I wish you well. Breathe and be well. Namaste. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you like these types of videos, please give this video a thumbs up. And if you're not yet subscribed to my channel, please subscribe by clicking the button somewhere down here. And leave your comments in the comment section below. If you have any special requests, I'll take special requests as well. Thank you so much. Breathe and be well. Namaste.